So so tell us your background. Why did you get into the bagel business, especially when there's so much competition? And are you not satisfied with the quality of bagels in New York City?
So I should probably tell you what I do specifically first. We make a amazing 125-year-old recipe bagel that is 90% done in New York City, and it's flash frozen, and we ship it all over the world. And our customers can finish it fresh and hot on their premises with no loss of quality. So about 17, 18 years ago, I was living in the western part of the United States, and people complained about bagel quality all the time. So I decided to do something about it. So I came on a trip to the East Coast. I was born and raised in Connecticut. I'm Jewish, and grew up with bagels, basically in Lenders in New Haven, Connecticut, which is a very interesting story. If we have time, I can tell you about why Lenders became what they became, and they were really the ones responsible for bringing bagels all over the world. But I came to New York and I talked to all the best bagel people, and I started working with a very reputable company that was really famous. I don't want to promote them. They're now gone, but I don't want to promote them, so they're going to remain nameless. You can ask me off camera if you want.
Okay.
They what I did with their product, they basically had the best bagel in New York, and what I did with their product is I started flash freezing it and testing it and doing a par baked version of that, and it was a huge success. And so I expanded that around the Western United States, and then nationally and then internationally. Did really well with it. I didn't own the brand, and the brand went defunct due to mismanagement, and I got taken for a lot of money, unfortunately. I had very wide distribution, and so I said, how do you trump what they were doing? And there was a union that controlled all the bagel making in New York City area starting in 1905. There's 20 families from Warsaw, Poland, where the bagel originated. They came to the Lower East Side in the 1890s, and they organized into a union, and you had to be born into it. Either your dad, your uncle, your grandfather are married into it. And by the 1950s, there was 300 Jewish guys that controlled all the bagel making in the tri-state area. And by the late 60s, early 70s, they went to funk due to automated equipment, and they lost their power, and they morphed into a larger bakery union. And that's when the bagel became bigger. It started getting adjuncts and more sugars, and that's really when the recipe got lost. I'm trained by a guy who started in 1946, and he was a third-generation bagel maker in the United States, and actually his lineage goes all the way back to Warsaw. So I know the original Lower East Side recipe. I'm very lucky. The recipe is part of its ingredients, part of it is the recipe itself, but the timing is a huge factor, and very few people know how to time it because it's different every day because of the weather and the humidity and really the space that you're in. So in New York has amazing water, which would be classified as an ingredient. It's very soft, lower mineral content, has the right pH for baking bagels, pizza, and all breads, but especially bagels. But there's a lot of magic and there's a lot of knowledge, and it's really about like feeling the dough and seeing what works and what doesn't work. Bagels are very difficult to make as well because they ferment in the refrigerator for about 24 hours. So we get the yeast to activate with the malt syrup, which is the sugar that's in them, which gives it that nutty special bagel flavor. And then once they activate with the yeast, which is called a proof, we actually retard the proofing. So we slow the proofing down. And that slow aging is like a fine wine or a distilled spirit or a beer. And that's when the bagel gains a lot of its flavor in that 24-hour period. So when you make the dough, it's going to take you a day to really see how it came out. It's not like you're in the kitchen and you're going to like for 1 hour or 2 hours you can say, oh, that was good, let's try it again. It takes 24 hours. So most bakers do not have success making bagels either because it's a different strategy than what they're taught in baking. So with that out of the way I got into the business was I saw that there was a problem. There were not great bagels outside of the New York City area, and so I decided to solve that problem by making everything in New York with the New York water, with the best ingredients, with the best recipe, and doing it right with the right equipment. And then we flash freeze them when they're 90% done, and our customers can finish them in their oven 5 to 10 minutes. They're fresh and hot, no loss of quality anywhere in the world. And don't use preservatives. We don't use chemicals. My company's called Noshman's, and every Jewish surname was made up at a certain point, unless you're a Cohen, basically, for the Ashkenazis. And so I always love the word Nosh. It's such a great word.
It's a good name.
And I'm my history, I'm a Halprin, comes from Germany, German Jews, and the town that my lineage is from, everyone took the same last name. When the king said everyone needs surnames so I can track taxes, all the Jews in that town took the same last name. So
I'll show you.
So that's how that happened. And the bagel is from Central Europe, Warsaw. They didn't have sugar back then, so malt comes from malted barley. And what they did is they sprout barley, and the barley gets sugar from that sprouting process, and they dry it, and they get the sugar out of that. Once the New World was colonized, sugar access was much easier, but it was expensive. So bagels are flour, malt syrup, salt, which controls the rate at which the yeast. A lot of people think it's for flavor. It actually controls the rate at which the yeast is eaten. The yeast eats the malt, and so there's yeast and there's water. Am I missing anything? But that's basically what's in a bagel, and flour. And so flour quality, and you're asking me off camera, Jeff, about this, flour quality is really crucial. We use a special protein flour that is from the Dakotas. It is high gluten, but everything that we use in my company is unbleached, unbromated flour. So that's actually much healthier flour than what most flours you find in bagels in New York City at the moment. So really our mission is really to bring amazing bagels to the rest of the country. We don't compete much in New York. However, our product is found all over New York City, and we don't even promote it. We have some amazing distribution partners that do extremely well with our product. They sell it, we supply them, and we don't really get involved too much. New York is so competitive that we don't want to compete against in a competitive market. We don't need to. We can go to other places in the country and we can compete, and we can really solve problems for these places. We do a lot of grocery store business. The grocery chains that are higher end, which is where the trend is going. We do a lot of high-end hotels and resorts. So you will find us in food service distribution, especially food service distribution and grocery distribution. And that's really our motto. We sell large volumes. As far as flavors go, we do all the traditional flavors. Pumpernickel is one of my favorite flavors. So we do egg, we do whole wheat, we do a jalapeno, especially we do a multi-grain now, which is kind of the next generation of whole wheat. All our ingredients are very high quality, all natural, no chemicals. Most of the bagel places in New York are using whey, which is making it so the hand rollers, if you find a hand rolled bagel, they're putting whey in, which is a milk byproduct. Bagels are typically vegan unless it's an egg bagel. And
for kosher reasons, right?
No, they're doing it to soften the dough so the rolling is easier. So our oven is managed by a Jew, an observant Jew, and we adhere to very strict standards. We have a very respected texture, and that's important to us.
Is Lender still in business?
Yeah, but they're a brand that's been bounced around, and it's basically an abomination. It's not really a bagel.
It's not what it was.
Bagels, bagels are boiled. Ours are all boiled, done the traditional method. We do, because of the volume we're doing it, we do use some larger format machinery. Basically I'm a manufacturer, but I have owned smaller places. I used to own a place on the Lower East Side that's 80 years old. That everything was hand rolled. It's really important to me to do it that way. But price is a consideration. So you got to stay competitive, price wise. So.
Can you talk about some of the business? Like you told me off camera that you've been in the business for about 20 years now.
Yeah.
So how did you get started? I mean, did you fund it yourself? Did you have to? There was no crowdfunding in those days, right? So.
So I was in the distribution side before I was in the manufacturing side. So when I was on the distribution side, I plugged into the manufacturing side extensively, but I didn't own that brand.
Right.
So when I started on the distribution side, I just pulled the money together, and basically we just needed money for inventory, and we were just making sure we had healthy margins. I mean, you learn a lot, having to manage cash flow. In any business, that's the most important thing. It doesn't matter how good your product is, how good you are, how hard you're willing to work. If you don't have cash flow, positive cash flow, you're not going to be in business much longer. So that's a lesson that I think most entrepreneurs eventually learn, and it's good for them to get that out of the way at an early point and be taught that so they can actually flourish. So most entrepreneurs don't understand that mechanism, which is crucial. And once you've experienced it, it makes sense. That's one of the things I think consultants can be helpful for.
So when you started, you were lucky in the sense that because you had been a distributor for a bagel company, you already knew where you could go to get bagels baked, and now your funding was really a case of how do I raise enough money, raise enough dough to make some dough for the day, and it's basically a daily output, right?
I went to a bakery that wasn't using their equipment maximally, so basically I went in and said, can I use your space and your equipment? And they knew my history, so that helped. But,
Okay.
you know,
So you didn't have to lay out that $100,000 in bagel
no,
baking
but I
equipment.
still had to lay out money for inventory and for other things, and also you got to live. So I mean, when
Right.
you have a company that's 24/7, basically, if you're an entrepreneur, it should be 24/7. I mean, granted, you need to sleep well, or else you'll never get there. But you know, when you're working all the time and you make sacrifices for it, you've got to hustle.
So now you said you're distributed all over the world.
Yeah, we have distribution in Asia and in Europe. I would like more, but we're all over the country. I think we're in 20 major cities on a daily delivery distribution at the moment, and we're growing.
How do you market your products? Or
So
or initially, how
we're
did you do that?
B2B. So we're doing mostly food service. So it's really a lot of just doing food shows, doing cold calls. You know, food shows cost money, so it's hard to raise capital. It's one of the hardest things you'll ever do as an entrepreneur or in life, convincing people to give you money for something that you haven't done yet. So unless you've got, you know, an asset to put against it, it can be really challenging. So the best advice I can give somebody in that position is don't quit your day job until you have a product that actually has positive cash flow. So do it after 5 p.m. and on the weekends, and that should be your passion. And if it's not your passion, you shouldn't be doing it in the first place. But don't quit your day job. I know that's, you know, seems like, you know, such a common thing to say, but it's true. And it's hard to have your back up against the wall money wise and not be able to pay your bills. And you've got a company that you have a great idea. So you know, New York's a good training ground for that, because to live here anyways, you need multiple sources of income.
Right.
So the rest of the country, you know, people don't really see that as much. And I tell every single entrepreneur starting out, make sure you have multiple sources of income before you risk it all.
So now, so you say you're B2B, but some of the supermarket chains pick it up.
We have branding too, yeah. But
Would I ever see Noshman's in the store, or
Yeah.
would I just be eating a bagel and not know it was yours?
Both. And anyone who has lineage back to New York City likes bagels, even if they're not Jewish. And anyone who likes bagels is going to ask their Jewish friend who has the best bagels. So if you're in, you know, Austin, Texas, or you're in, you know, Chicago, or you're in Seattle, everyone's got an opinion. Bagels are magically trendy always. Everyone's always looking for a good bagel, and it's this low-fat, high-flavor bread, which is kind of a mystery how it can be like that. But because they're boiled before they're baked, that locks the flavor in, kind of like an M&M shell. And when they're in the refrigerator, and you know they gain a lot of flavor, but when they go and, you know, they're boiled and they're baked, they hold a lot of that flavor in, and you have that nice nutty, malty, sweet flavor that is comboed with the wheat, and it creates, in the fermentation with the yeast, and it creates a really beautiful flavor that is hard to replicate. And that's why when you were telling me about bagels that you like from when you were a child, that's what they did. The timing is really crucial, and to be able to produce at scale. A lot of people want to cut corners, especially in New York City right now, because it's expensive, and the labor is expensive, and the labor, if you can get good labor, they've got bills, and you want to retain those guys, and you can't really, or girls, and you can't keep them around because it's such a challenge here in the city. It's too expensive to live here now.
Can you talk about some of your numbers, like how you've grown, the sort of volume you do? You said 20 cities, but like, what does that translate to? Like, how many bagels a day, or how many?
We you know, we're doing, you know, close to 1 million bagels a month. But we sell by the pallet, so we sell in increments of 5,000 bagels.
Okay.
So we're selling, you know, we'll fill a truckload up. So that would be 120,000 bagels.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So that's the business that we do. So that's what we like to do.
And this
It's an
all
easier
ships out
business.
frozen.
Yeah. And I don't like retail, and I really will recommend every entrepreneur to highly consider going into retail unless it's your complete passion to deal with the public, because running something 7 days a week and having to be open for people you've never met in your life, and having to service the public with a smile is a really big challenge. It comes with a lot of pitfalls, and the margins are really low. But if you hit a home run, you can hit a huge home run with retail. So it's not a bad business, but it's one of the more challenging businesses. You know, for us in manufacturing, we're running better margins, and it's a simpler game. And we have an amazing product. So I have the best par-baked bagel in the world, by far. No one, and it was I'm very proud of the fact that we're able to create that, and consistently make it. Every one of our bagels looks different, although
They're hand rolled?
they're not hand rolled because it would cost twice as much money to hand roll.
Yeah, I was going to say
so
a million.
we can't do that in order to compete. We machine roll those bagels. We do some hand rolled for special stuff, and then I teach bagel classes, and we do small scale production just for the fun of it. And I have that original Lower East Side recipe, and then we'll do the 3-ounce bagel, which when you roll it, it's 3 fingers instead of 4. All of the guys now that hand roll are rolling with their whole hand, or with usually the whole entire hand. The old school, they went from 3 fingers to 4 fingers to the whole hand.
Is that the size of the bagel changed?
Yeah. So
they
it
have
used to be
gotten bigger.
it used to be a 3-ounce, then it was a 4-ounce, now it's 5-ounce.
Oh, okay. That changes the baking time then too, right?
Yeah, but that doesn't matter. I mean,
Okay.
you're talking about not
I think
much.
some of the bigger ones aren't as...
I will tell you the bigger
tasty.
ones have a better shelf life, I think, because
Oh.
of the surface area, the ratio of the innards to the dough on the inside to the shell, it allows it to stay softer for longer. We have an amazing product, and it's just about awareness, and it's really difficult to get a buyer to change. The buyers are really difficult because a lot of them are just comfortable where they're at, and also with some of these the disruption in the grocery business. Grocery is a great business for us because we can solve problems for the grocery stores really easily. They control their inventory easier with our product because they only have to bake what they need. Our product can come in, a box of them can go in the refrigerator, can stay there for 4 or 5 days, and they bake them off as they need them in 5 or 10 minutes, depending on their oven. So they always have them fresh if they want. They don't have to worry about a delivery and having too much. The perfect example is a snow day. Snow day could go either way. The night before, you're like, oh, it's going to snow a foot, so let's not order as many bagels for tomorrow because we're going to throw them all out because they're not going to sell. And then that morning, it turned to rain, and then it cleared up unexpectedly. The sun's out, and all the kids have the day off from school, so mom decides to go grocery shopping with the kids, and she's buying bagels. And now all of a sudden, it's a huge bagel day, bigger than normal, and they're out. So they lost all that business. Yeah, not to mention, the reputation-wise, they don't look as good because next time the parents want to buy bagels, they're like, well, they probably don't have them in stock because they don't sell a lot of bagels. Let's go somewhere else for bagels. So we solve those problems for grocery, which is a big problem to solve. They don't want those issues. They want to control their inventory. So we like the grocery business, but the biggest problem and pain point I have is with buyers not understanding the difference between a quality product. I would say about 75% of the buyers out there that are catering to the customer that wants our product are not recognizing that they should offer our product because they don't want their lives to become more complicated, and they want their lives to be easy, and they care about their kids' soccer practice and leaving their office early that day. And that's what they care about, and that's really a shame for the consumer. So if they hustled a little bit harder and they understood that the marketplace is changing and that the consumers actually want a higher quality product, which is what the market's dictating right now. And by the way, we're competitive in price with all of our competition. We just have a better product and we have better ingredients. We just figured out how to do it, which I'm very proud of. I just need the buyers to pay attention. We can solve a lot of their problems, and ultimately I can make them more money next month than they made last month. And getting their attention is difficult. So you got to hustle really hard, and it's a law of averages, and you got to call, if you want 10 people to talk to you, sometimes you got to call 100. And if you go down the list and you've called 15 and you've gotten 15 no's, keep calling. Now, I'll tell you right now, it's feast or famine in the grocery business with Amazon. These guys all better be hustling and being better than their competition. Otherwise, they're not going to be around.
Because this is a commodity then.
You have to be 10% better. Natural foods and high-end food, retail is a commodity now. Yes.
But I mean, even bagels, because people go like, it's the bagel. If they don't know, not me.
The buyer thinks it's a commodity, the consumer doesn't. And the buyers need to wake up and understand that the consumer is looking for a higher quality product with better ingredients. And they need to recognize that bagels are a huge business. And people, I mean, all they have to do is look at their numbers. The problem is they have never had a bagel as good as ours. And they don't think that there's a better opportunity there. But once they actually invest the time, they'll realize not only can we make their life easier because we're so educated and we can set them up for success because we know all their pain points, and our product from the boxes to the packaging to the pitch to the actual bagels, there's 3 factors. There's aesthetics. You want the bagel to look good. You want the texture to be right. You want it to be chewy with, crunchy skin on the outside. And then you want a nice chew inside, but you want great flavor. And so once they embrace that, we do really well. Like, we have some amazing accounts, but if everyone else followed in their lead, we'd really be. Bagels are super trendy right now. There's all over the country. There's all these bagel pop-ups, and I'll tell you what, these guys, I wish you the best, and I love the fact that you're promoting bagels, but these guys think they're knowledgeable, but they're not. They don't understand. Bagels are very difficult to make. And unless you know that little sweet spot and that magic to make them awesome, like the guys from 100 years ago, you're just a hack. And that's bad. If you want bagel advice, you want me to teach you how to make great bagels, I can do that. Once they train someone to do it, that person never sticks around forever. So what happens is they've got their wholesale orders in the morning, their customers showing up at 6 a.m., they've got an employee, a baker that never showed up properly, and these guys are just trying to fill their orders. And it's really difficult to control quality at that point, especially when you have turnover in labor. It's super difficult. And that's one of the big problems with New York City right now. You see it not just with bagels, but all the food. All the owners have to cut corners, even if they can barely stay alive with the real estate costs, which is just absurd in this city. The Renaissance has been a negative renaissance in the city for all these old school food places that were part of the soul and culture of the city. Now can't afford to stick around, and they have to cut corners on ingredients or labor, and you lose knowledge with that, and you lose quality with that, and it's really sad.
So how do you do it? Because you're not
very well, thank you.
Yeah, well, yeah, okay. Well, give us all the secrets, all the numbers, the blueprint. No, but
we do it with numbers. We do it with numbers. We produce, and that's one of the lessons an entrepreneur can learn. Know your numbers. Run your scenarios. Like, what's the difference between selling 100 items and 1,000 items? What kind of cash flow you need to operate that, and what's your margins? And if you lower your price a little bit to get in, because price really drives sales a lot of the time. There's an argument to be made for having a higher price if you're quality and getting the attention. But price. Let's just say price drives sales, because it usually does. And you get into that spot, now you're at a point where in order to have a lower price, you have to do a certain amount of numbers. And so if you have to sell 10,000 units to hit your goal, how do you sell those 10,000 units? That's a whole nother strategy. Now you have to produce those 10,000 units, and you have to sell them, and you need the cash flow to manage that. So there's a lot to it. The boss is usually the best person to sell, because they're the one passionate about it. I'm the best person to sell. But right now, I don't have the time.
But that's what I mean.
So it's difficult. I mean, I'll usually have somebody who's assisting me that's making calls for me that's with me. And I'll say, hey, call this person. And they'll say, hey, they want to know this, that, and the other thing. And I'll be right there to answer the questions, or if they can get them on the phone. Or I'll have someone that will hopefully schedule meetings for me.
But that's the numbers, though. Like, how do you get them to say, here's the lousy bagels you're selling, and here's what a real bagel is?
Well, the first thing is you need to get their attention, right? You need to get them on the phone. So that's step number one. Number two, you just got to be logical with them. I mean, for me, my favorite new thing that I've been selling is, which is true, and I finally recognized and had the wherewithal to actually say it, is that your bagel program is boring. Your bakery's boring when I walk in there. It's all homogenized stuff that people are buying because that's just they're used to buying it. It's not something they get excited about. Why not make it more exciting? Why not differentiate yourself from your competition and bring customers into your store that are looking for this kind of stuff? Because right now in 2018, time goes by fast. And right now people are into great food and they recognize the difference, and they want better quality ingredients. And we use unbleached flour in our product, and our stuff's all clean label. It's important to me. I want to make sure kids are eating products that are good for them, not bleached flour that causes diabetes and rheumatoid arthritis. Type 2 diabetes is rampant problem in here. So a lot of times I'll go in and I'll say, do you realize you're selling bagels with bleached flour in it and it's causing type 2 diabetes to all your customers? I don't know.
Do you do any sort of like, I don't know what the term would be, but like sort of like collaborative advertising where the customers coming into the store may not know. They may just see a bagel rack in the store and not know
A lot of times
that
they don't want to brand our product, which is fine as long as they buy a lot of it.
No, but what I mean is it might ramp up sales if people say, these are not the usual bagels you've had. This is a new company that's selling special.
We always try. The problem is, like I said, a lot of these companies, the way they're run, it gets lost in that delegation of management. And a lot of people that are in jobs just don't care. They're in responsible positions, and that's what makes it so hard. You know, they just don't care. But guess what? There's companies out there that do. And you got to get with those companies because those companies are the future. And the companies that don't care, they're the dinosaurs. They're going away.